Some people tense up the moment you walk into the room. You can feel it before anyone says a word. The energy shifts. Conversations change. Eyes track you in a way that isn't hostile but isn't comfortable either, and sooner or later someone labels you. They say you're too intense, too independent, too confident, too much. Sometimes they even use a stronger word. They call you dangerous, not because you threaten them, not because you did anything wrong, but because something about you makes them uneasy in a way they can't explain. Here's the truth. Most people never say out loud, when someone calls you dangerous, they're not talking about harm, they're talking about loss of control. You don't move the way they expect. You don't react on schedule. You don't ask permission to exist fully, and that terrifies people who rely on predictability to feel safe. This message is for the people who've been misunderstood for standing tall, for the ones who were punished for self-respect, for the ones who were labeled difficult, cold, selfish, arrogant, or intimidating, simply because they refuse to shrink. If that's you, listen closely, because being called dangerous isn't an insult. It's proof you've stepped outside a system that only works when everyone stays small. Why confidence makes people uncomfortable. Confidence isn't loud. It doesn't shout. It doesn't dominate conversations. Real confidence is quiet, and that's why it's unsettling. When you walk into a space without needing validation, it disrupts the unspoken agreement most people live by. I'll pretend not to be myself if you do the same. You break that contract just by being present. You don't fidget to be liked. You don't over-explain to be accepted. You don't perform insecurity to make others feel superior. And suddenly, people who rely on social hierarchies feel exposed. You remind them, without saying a word, that another way of living exists, and they don't know how to handle that. 1, you don't feel obligated to explain your life. Most people treat their decisions like court cases. They collect evidence, they prepare defenses, they rehearse explanations just in case someone disapproves. You don't. You make a decision, and you stand in it. When you change direction, people demand reasons. They want logic. They want reassurance. They want proof that your choice doesn't threaten their worldview. But instead of delivering a speech, you offer a sentence. It felt right. It was time. I'm choosing something else. And then you stop talking. This drives people insane because they've been trained to believe that every choice requires group approval, that adulthood means defending yourself endlessly, that deviating from the script is irresponsible unless everyone agrees. You've quietly opted out of that belief. You understand something most people never learn. Your life is not a committee decision. You don't owe anyone emotional labor just because they're curious. You don't need witnesses to validate your growth. You don't need consensus to move forward. And when you refuse to explain yourself, people feel powerless, not because you're wrong, but because they can't influence you. 2, you're no longer afraid of disappointing people. This is where many people break. They'll tolerate exhaustion. They'll sacrifice peace. They'll abandon themselves completely. All to avoid one thing: someone being upset with them. You used to be like that too. You said yes when your body screamed no. You showed up when you were drained. You gave more than you had because you didn't want to be seen as selfish. Then one day something shifted. You realized that being liked at the cost of your sanity wasn't kindness, it was self-betrayal. Now, when someone asks for more than you can give, you pause. You choose honesty over approval. You say, I can't, and you don't chase their reaction. Some people don't take it well. They sulk, they guilt trip, they pull away, and for the first time you let them. You don't panic, you don't overcorrect, you don't beg to be forgiven for having limits, because you understand something powerful. Other people's emotions are not emergencies you're required to fix. This is where they start calling you cold, or distant, or dangerous. But the truth is, you've simply stopped setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. 3, you don't need to win every discussion. There was a time when being right felt important. You corrected misinformation, you defended facts, you jumped into debates armed with logic and evidence. And then you notice something. Some people don't want clarity. They want control. They're not searching for truth. They're searching for dominance. Now, when someone confidently says something incorrect, you evaluate the moment. Is this conversation worth my energy? Is this person open to learning or just trying to feel superior? If it's the latter, you disengage, you don't argue, you don't perform intelligence, you don't need to prove anything. You let silence do the work. And that confuses people deeply. They mistake restraint for weakness. They assume you back down. But what they don't realize is that wisdom knows when to walk away. You save your voice for conversations that grow something, not ones that drain you. That calm refusal to engage, that's dangerous to people who rely on chaos to feel powerful. 4. Your growth disrupts comfortable lives. The moment you start evolving, everything changes. You prioritize your health. You discipline your time. You invest in learning. You raise your standards. And suddenly people who once felt close start acting strange. They joke, but it's edged with bitterness. They tease, but there's resentment underneath. You've changed. You're not fun anymore. You think you're better now? What they're really saying is, your growth is forcing me to confront my stagnation. You didn't abandon them. You didn't judge them. You simply moved forward. And that movement shines a light on everything they're avoiding. Some people rise with you. Others try to pull you back. You let them go because you understand that comfort zones don't expand by staying loyal to versions of yourself you've outgrown. That choice to keep growing even when it costs familiarity is why they call you dangerous. 5. You don't turn your pain into a performance. We live in a world where suffering is broadcast. Breakdowns become content. Heartache becomes currency. Pain is displayed for validation. You opted out. When something hurts you, you feel it fully, but privately, you don't post vague quotes. You don't seek sympathy. You don't narrate your healing process for an audience. You grieve quietly. You rebuild silently. You return stronger. This unsettles people. They're used to access, used to emotional transparency as entertainment, used to consuming other people's wounds. Your restraint feels like distance to them, but it's actually strength. You understand that not everyone deserves access to your vulnerability, that healing doesn't require witnesses, that privacy is power. And when you emerge healed without inviting commentary, people don't know how to place you, so they label you detached, or unfeeling, or dangerous. 6. You trust your inner signal more than outside noise. Advice comes from everywhere: family expectations, cultural timelines, social pressure. Everyone has a blueprint for how your life should look. But you listen to something quieter, a subtle sign, that says, this isn't right, or this is worth the risk. You've learned that intuition isn't random. It's experience distilled into instinct. You don't always explain it. You don't always justify it. You honor it. And because of that, you avoid paths that look good on paper but feel wrong in your body. This makes you unpredictable. You can't be persuaded by fear. You can't be bullied by expectations. You can't be talked out of what you know deep down. People who depend on external validation can't relate to this, so they call it reckless, or naive, or dangerous. But time keeps proving you right. 7. You stop trying to rescue everyone. This lesson cost you the most. You used to believe love meant sacrifice, that loyalty meant endurance, that caring meant fixing. You poured energy into people who refused to change. You stayed in dynamics that drained you. You mistook exhaustion for virtue. Then reality hit. You realized that no amount of love can save someone who won't save themselves. So you stopped. You stopped explaining bad behavior. You stopped offering endless chances. You stopped confusing empathy with obligation. Some people didn't like that. They benefited from your overgiving. They relied on your patience. They depended on your self-neglect. When you withdrew, they called you selfish, but what you actually did was reclaim your life. You began investing only where there was mutual effort. And to people who profit from your self-abandonment, that looks dangerous. 8. You're comfortable with silence. Silence reveals everything. It exposes insecurity. It unsettles egos. It removes distractions. You don't rush to fill it. In conversation, you pause. In negotiations, you wait. In tension, you stay present. And people talk, they over-explain, they backtrack, they reveal intentions they meant to hide. You observe, you understand that silence isn't emptiness, it's leverage. Most people fear it because it forces self-reflection. You've made peace with it, and that quiet confidence unsettles those who need noise to feel important. 9. You move in silence until it's done. You don't announce your plans early. You don't seek validation for unfinished ideas. You don't invite opinions before momentum exists. You build quietly. While others talk, you work. While others doubt, you test. While others hesitate, you refine. And when you finally reveal what you've been creating, it's already real. No one can dismiss it. No one can derail it. No one can take credit. This makes people uncomfortable because they're used to seeing the process, used to influencing outcomes, used to commentary. Your restraint protects your vision, and that's dangerous to anyone who wants access before results. 10. You walk away without drama. When something no longer serves you, you leave. No spectacle, no revenge, no explanation beyond necessity. You understand that not every ending requires closure. Some doors are meant to close quietly. You prioritize peace over proving a point, and people don't know how to handle that. They expect conflict. They expect emotion. They expect chaos. Your calm exit denies them that. Your absence speaks louder than any argument, and that kind of self-respect is unsettling to those who stay stuck out of fear. 11. You're building a life most people can't imagine. This is the core of it, ALL. You're not chasing approval. You're not performing success. You're not living on autopilot. You're intentional. You value depth over applause, freedom over familiarity, purpose over permission. Your life doesn't fit into neat boxes, and that confuses people who live by rules they never questioned. You're not dangerous because you destroy. You're dangerous because you were awake in a world that benefits from sleepwalking, awake in a culture that rewards conformity, awake in systems built on self-abandonment. And once someone wakes up, they can't be controlled the same way again.